Well, good evening and welcome. It's nice to have a stage to stand upon, but as you may have noticed, I'm slightly taller than the average creature, so I may not stand on the stage a lot. I sort of like wandering around as well. So anyway, it is a great privilege for me to be here. I am here in Singapore for just 2 months as a visiting professor with my wife, who is in the audience over here, and we practice our negotiation skills often, so she can tell you more about that. Okay. What is negotiation? I think it's useful to consider a definition when you talk about almost any subject. And so here's a definition that my colleagues and I use: any attempt or any effort to influence or persuade someone. So of course, those are formal negotiations about contracts and terms and conditions and things like that. If you're buying a flat or a house or a car or leasing or hiring something, there are those kinds of negotiations. But every single day, there are all kinds of informal negotiations that happen at the workplace in terms of who's going to be on a team or who's not, how you should manage a project, which components you should start with, which you should end with, but also in family life. And those are some of the most difficult because people know how to push your buttons and you know how to push theirs. Right? You care about these people and it matters more, therefore you're even more intransigent, more locked in than you might otherwise be. So I just want to encourage you to think about this from that lens as we go through this. Okay, so what are the kinds of things we do in negotiations? Well, here is where I think most people put most of their focus, on the substance. That is, what is this negotiation about and what's it going to get me? The terms, conditions, deliverables. Another word would be the content of the negotiation. Just as importantly, and unfortunately implicitly, often behind the scenes, is a negotiation about the process. And one of the people who's done a fair bit of work in the area of gender and negotiation, Deborah Kolb, who was actually a former director of the program on negotiation at Harvard, wrote a book called The Shadow Negotiation. And what specifically she's referring to is process. So all of us have a method, and in fact many methods for negotiating, and when we do so and we come to start talking about the substance, we have an implied or implicit process. And we don't tend to make that explicit until there's a problem. And then you find yourself saying, I don't like the way this is going. That's a process discussion from our perspective. So one of our big pieces of advice for people is make that more explicit. Bring that to the table and say, listen, I'd like to talk to you about this, and here's how I'd like to go about it. Does that sound okay to you? Or do you think we should be discussing it differently? So this evening's discussion is about the different processes or methods or approaches that men and women bring to negotiation. People have told us, look, there are a couple things that are important to us. Obviously, the substance is important to us, the terms and conditions of the outcome, etc. And that previous research is only talking about that, or mostly talking about that, I should say. So substance is important, absolutely, and relationship is important. And a lot of people have said, you know, I feel this tension between these two, and that is, if for me, you know, to get what I want, I can play the hard ball, play the hard bargainer, and I can get my interests met here, and I may damage the relationship in the process. Other people say, yeah, you know, I'm on the other side of that one. I value the relationship a lot, so I focus on that and I make concessions on the substance, and people like me a lot. There's a lot of goodwill toward me, but I don't meet my interest on the substance so well. Now, how many of you would say, you know, that resonates at least at some level with me? Just a show of hands. Okay, so what's interesting to me about this is it's an unattractive choice, right? I don't want to have to choose between whether you and I can get along and whether we can deal with each other and figure out outcomes to situations that we're trying to resolve. I don't want to have to choose between that. But not only is it unattractive, I think it's further than that, it is a false choice, and at least only a short-term one, not one that is sustainable for any significant period of time. And you have to consider for yourself, well, why do I do what I do? Well, some of it is you're born with a certain wiring. Then there's socialization, right? And experiences and conclusions you make, messages you get from the people who are close to you and who matter to you. And those collectively form your personality and how you make your way in the world. So you have messages about what a good way is to proceed and what a bad way is, and you do those, many of them unconsciously. So what we actually help people do is raise their level of consciousness about what they do in the first place, what works about it and what doesn't. Right, so I want to just do a quick little exercise, and for this exercise I need everyone to pair up and find a partner. So find a partner. Yeah, everyone find a partner. Maybe you could meet somebody new, you know. Maybe there's a interesting person you haven't talked to. Oh, you don't have a partner? No? Okay. Okay. Excellent. So here's the task. Here's the task. Can I get your attention again? All right, pick an A and a B in your partnership. This should be an easy negotiation, by the way. A and B. If you like, you could join up with my wife. She's just back there. Did you want to pair, or did you want to go up there? It doesn't work so well, but you could do that. Okay. All right, all right. Hold up, hold up. What's going on over there? How hard is this? Okay, so A and B is selected. Excellent. Now, don't ask for more. Could I be A primed or, you know? Now, here's the thing. A has $10,000. A has $10,000. And that $10,000 is going to be allocated in some way, maybe, depending on how A is feeling, between A and B. What I'd like B to do is decide for yourself what is your minimum threshold. That is, what is the minimum that you would accept? Right? And ideally, the minimum you would accept and feel good about. So, and if you have something like a BlackBerry, iPhone, little piece of paper with you, you can write it down in secret or type it into your notes section or something, so you're a little more committed to it than just in your brain. Okay? So do that now, and then A, in a moment I'm going to say go, and A, at your sole discretion, will tell B, well, here's how much you get. Now, what happens next is, if that number is below B's minimum threshold, both of you get nothing, and I get the 10 grand back. Woohoo! Okay? If it is at or above, then it is what it was said to be. Okay? Clear? Can the number be, it can be whatever number A decides, okay? And no discussion about it. No negotiation, right. Yes. Wow, the irony. Okay, go ahead, do it. I'm looking around the room for how many happy faces are there. So let me just take a quick survey. How many people were 5,000 each? Just a show of hands. Okay. How many A's kept more than 5,000 for themselves? Oh. Okay. Look. Those are women's hands you see in the air. Not only women. And by the way, this doesn't make you bad people. Right? We don't have to like beat you up outside later or anything. Okay, so of those, I'm just curious about some of the distributions. So someone who had more than 5,000 who kept it for themselves, just holler out the number and I'll share it with the group. Okay, so now if you think about this from a pure economic, quote, rationalist's perspective, anything, right, is better than nothing. So $1, people should technically be happy because they currently have 0. But we aren't, right? Why? What's the other variable? Yeah, fairness, right? The notion of fairness, which has an impact on relationship, and there we go, there's the matrix in action. A great way to introduce this, which is the two different fundamental distinctions in models of negotiating. The common one is the pie's fixed, there's only so much to go around, and this is therefore a battle. If this is a battle, in a battle, there are enemies. And so what do I want to do to an enemy? Beat them, destroy them, kill them was said here. At least beat them, but yes, maybe. So I want to beat them, trounce them into the ground, step on their head, shame them publicly. And so my strategy is very competitive and about focused on what I get. The actions are using force, being aggressive, pushing hard, and the result often actually a fairly low value outcome. And most of that earlier research I cited was just about that, the fixed pie. Fundamentally shift the paradigm. Wait a second here. In almost any negotiation, you can destroy value. How many people would agree that that's possible? Okay, excellent. So, if you agree that you can destroy value, by its very definition, the pie is not fixed. You can shrink it. So if you can shrink it, you must be able to expand it. And the expansion is based on your choices. It's based on your choices. So treat it like a puzzle. Even if, or I would say especially if you see the other party as an enemy. Hi, I'm the head of state of a country and you're the head of state of another country. We are enemies. And our shared problem is that we need to figure out some way to coexist because we're here anyway. We're doing the time so we can be terrible and we can suffer, or we can do something better.